Škvorc. Good mythical morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of AMA of CLUB721. This is your host, Nazar and Brian. Today, we're very fortunate to have Bruno, founder of RMRK, here today with us. RMRK is one of the largest and most advanced NFT platform on Kasuna, Polkadot's Canary network. Built as a Lego and building blocks of new generations of NFTs, which involves NFTs owning NFTs, NFTs affecting other NFTs looks, NFTs boosting APY, and NFTs sharing revenues, reacting to emotes and also governed by a DAO. Please, Bruno, do elaborate what on really is RMRK and your team behind it and its vision.
Yep. Hi. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly.
Yes, we
Awesome. All right. So RMRK is a protocol built on the Kusama network, and Kusama is the canary network for Polkadot. Now, what's a canary network? A canary network is like, it was supposed to be a testnet, but that doesn't have worthless tokens. So the tokens have value, and people deploy actual production-worthy applications on it in order to make hackers want to hack it. So it's like another chain that gets all the features first. It's arguably more interesting, moving much faster than Polkadot. And you would probably deploy there if you wanted to experiment with things, if you wanted to try out some crazy apps like RMRK, for example. If you wanted to move really fast in terms of governance, because these blockchains have on-chain voting governance to change the runtime of the chain itself. So basically to do hard forks and soft forks on the chain itself while it's running through token voting, and a lot of other fun stuff. So we launched on the Kusama network, and the Kusama network is what you would call a layer 0 blockchain. So a blockchain that is meant to connect other blockchains. Its only purpose is to be like this. You can imagine an airport with different gates. And so Kusama is this airport, and the gates are your access points to different blockchains. And these gates, maybe sometimes they're permanently occupied by certain airlines. Like, I don't know, Qatar Airlines has a permanent gate, but then other gates are sometimes rented by some airlines. So in this Kusama and Polkadot universe, we call these parachain slots, and these slots are rented by other chains that want to connect to this entire blockchain. So what does this give you? It gives you the ability to build applications that can talk to other applications on all of these connected blockchains without needing a bridging infrastructure. Traditionally, if you want to bridge something like Ethereum and Bitcoin, you need a bridging infrastructure in between, and this will weaken your economic security of the chain because you need to find people to secure that bridge. But with Polkadot and Kusama, you have one set of validators securing every single chain that connects to this entire ecosystem, including the bridges to already existing chains like Ethereum and Bitcoin. So everything is secured by one set of validators, and it's super, super secure. Every new chain that joins increases the security of this entire ecosystem by a lot. And this lets you build some really powerful and secure applications. And now, RMRK itself is an NFT protocol on Kusama, and we launched in Kusama because we wanted to be instantly available to all of these other blockchains that are coming in and connecting. So by making NFTs on Kusama, you're actually making NFTs on like 200 other chains at the same time, each of which is very application specific, has a specific purpose. Like there's a chain that is only focusing on prediction markets. There's another chain that's only focusing on DeFi, another chain that's only focusing on identities, and so on. So what RMRK actually offers beyond just what NFTs are right now, and that's just pointers to images, pointers to expensive images. We took it further away from just expensive images. We didn't want your NFTs to just collect dust when you buy them. We wanted to instead make them usable and useful, and also eternally liquid, so that you can always use them, always sell them, but also to give them utility. And we did this by creating 5 different elements, little primitive NFT Legos, as we call them, that you can then very easily put together and compose into a very complex ecosystem, and into a system that is as complex as you want it to be. So, for example, our NFTs can own other NFTs, and our NFTs can also equip other NFTs, and this can be visually represented on the parent NFT. So we have this project called Canaria, where we launched this NFT collection this summer. And these are canaries, birds, because we launched on the Canary network. And these birds are composed of several different parts that vary, like maybe a wing made of fire, a head made of wind, and so on. And they also have slots into which you can equip other NFTs. And these NFTs that you equip, they're not any special kind of NFT. They're just a regular old NFT that is compatible with this other NFT for equipping. And I can later on make it compatible with another project in the future. So this is what I mean by eternal liquidity, by forward compatibility with other projects. You don't have to know what project is going to be made 10 years from now. You can just make an existing project compatible with it very easily and reuse this item economy across thousands of different projects into the future. Then another Lego is multi-resource NFTs, where a single NFT can have different outputs. You can imagine it like an ebook, and that ebook can have in one NFT for an ebook can have 3 different outputs. One is a PDF file, one is an audio file, and one is a cover image. And so if you have that NFT, and if you load that NFT into Audible, it will just play the book, its audio version. And if you load it into Singular, which is our NFT marketplace, you'll be able to read it because it will support PDFs. And if you load it into like a simple environment, like OpenSea, then it will just show the cover because that's all that OpenSea supports. Another Lego is emoting, so putting reactions onto NFTs, and this is all on-chain. So like you would expect on OpenSea, you have that little heart icon you can click to favorite an NFT. In this case, you can put any emoji, any reaction onto any NFT, and it'll be visualized in any UI that supports the spec. And so this is a really great social mechanic and gamification mechanic, and also a good price discovery mechanism. Then there's the ability to trigger conditional rendering. That's another Lego. So like I always use the example of like a Mona Lisa, and you have a Mona Lisa NFT with 2 resources. One is a Mona Lisa that's normal, and the other is a Mona Lisa that's blushing. And then if you can put a little bit of logic into that NFT with conditional rendering that says, if Mona Lisa gets 50 kiss emojis, then show the blushing resource, the blushing version of the Mona Lisa. And so you can combine these into infinitely complex applications that nest within each other. Any UI, any toolset that supports these primitive Legos automatically supports any combination of these Legos. And so you can build really intricate and rich ecosystems and examples that I can list later. And the final Lego is NFTs being governed as DAOs. So you can, on Ethereum, you have right now the ability to fractionalize an NFT into fungible tokens, but this is used exclusively for gambling. You can't really do much with those tokens. But here, because you have all of these different functions that you can call on these NFTs, like equipping another NFT, like changing the priority of resources being shown, and so on, you can actually use these collective tokens, these fungible tokens of one single NFT, to issue those commands collectively. And so you can, as a group, decide that you want to change something on an NFT. You can imagine like a Twitch streamer that is entering a game, and that avatar is tokenized. It's an NFT that's been turned into fungible tokens. And now the community has those tokens, and the community can interactively equip that character with different items for that next game as they watch the streamer play. So that's the gist of it. We developed these Legos that you put together into really intricate and advanced NFT systems that do much more than just sit in your wallet and allow you access to, certain gated websites.
I had a question. So when you refer to these different variables as Legos, is that actually a term that's used on the site, or is that kind of like a nickname that the team is using, or do you suggest other people using, like users using that term?
We've been using that as a blanket term for everything that we've built. So we've been referring to these primitives as our NFT Legos. Yes.
Nice. And then you had mentioned something that I found to be kind of interesting. Like you mentioned the Mona Lisa and how it can change into different variables, kind of like an if-then-else statement, right? Can you go into that a little bit more and how that's going to change the future of things? Kind of interested in that.
Yeah. So you have these mutable properties on NFTs that you can define when you're minting it. And then you have this little bit of logic called JSON logic that you can put into the actual content of the NFT. So I should mention that none of this is built with smart contracts. We are building a smart contract version of this, but right now you don't need to write a line of smart contract code to mint this stuff. And you can just put them together. And so in terms of adding logic to these NFTs, you can just add this little bit of JSON logic that will say literally something as simple as, if the number of kiss emojis is over 50, then reorder the resources in this order that I defined here. This can be extended to user-submitted and Oracle-submitted variables as well. So you can have like a little field that will be updated by an Oracle or a user. So imagine that very same Mona Lisa. Let's say that we're let's say that the actual Mona Lisa in the Louvre is an actual NFT that's based on Remark, and let's say that you have a switch on that NFT that you can pull that says yell, and that's either true or false. And if you flip that to true, the Mona Lisa in the museum is going to yell out Coca-Cola. And you, as the owner, are the only one who can do this. And so you have this creative power over that NFT, over that artwork, that will affect everybody who's observing that artwork. So you can have these fields that are mutable outside of the chain, but that the NFT can react to. And when you combine that with the logic of multi-resource NFTs and also nested NFTs, so NFTs owning other NFTs, it becomes a really fun exercise. Like we have these Canaria birds that can equip, one of the slots that you can equip into is the background. And so you can change the background behind your bird to one of the many backgrounds that we have. And now the background itself can be a nice green lush forest. But then it can have a different resource that's a forest under snow. And if you send it 50 snow emojis or something, it can switch to that version. And so now if you equip that forest behind your bird and people emote with snow on that background, then that background's going to switch and flip to something else. So it's like this. The entire protocol is basically acting like an MMO in a way.
Pretty interesting because it gives you a lot of adaptability and a chance to adapt to what maybe the users want to see and of interest as an example. Let me see.
Yeah,
something
and we also have there's this ability to add new resources after the NFT has been minted. So if I have, like, for example, a gun that can be held by the bird, and that gun has this resource that is designed, so a resource is just an output, a visual output. And if there's one resource that fits into the bird's hand, that's cool. But obviously that's not going to be compatible with another project coming out in 10 years, because you can't just stack it over a new project and expect it to fit visually. And so you can add a new resource that actually matches that new project later on after the fact, so that that gun will have an alternative rendering that matches this other game. And now it becomes compatible with that game. And so now you can send that NFT into a character in that game or into your character in Canaria, and whichever it's sent into, that character can equip it and change its visuals. So by extension, you not only make an NFT eternally liquid, but you also make it provably scarce over time, as it's compatible with more and more projects, and thus in more and more demand in each of them, because it becomes rarer and rarer as an item in each project that's coming out. And this is just related to something game-like that I'm mentioning here, but it's one of the big potentials here.
You had mentioned the lack of a smart contract. Can we touch on that a little bit more? Go into some more detail and how that might impact these NFTs and the art going forward. Is that possible?
Yeah. So why we have no smart contracts is not by our choice. I mean, it is our choice. We could have just not done it. But Kusama as a blockchain is meant to connect other blockchains, and for that reason it has to be super lightweight, because it has to process all of these messages that are constantly happening between these other chains. So for that reason, it doesn't really have smart contracts, and it never will. Instead, it relies on other connected chains to have those smart contracts, and then those ecosystems communicating with each other through Kusama itself. When I was starting RMRK last year, there were no connected chains on Kusama. This parachain technology was not built yet, and you couldn't really launch on anything else. But people were really hungry for NFTs, and Kusama developed into this kind of very art-friendly chain. And also, people had a lot of extra KSM and nothing much to spend it on because the parachains weren't live yet. You couldn't really crowd loan and do all of the things that people are doing now. And so I figured, let's try and hack NFTs onto a chain without a smart contract. If there had been smart contracts back then, I would have built smart contracts. But I had to. I was forced to work like this, and it turned out fine because I used the approach from Bitcoin's old days when they tried to do NFTs on Bitcoin through the colored coin mechanic. Essentially, you can imagine a block of transactions like a shipping container, and all of the transactions are inside of that container and being shipped. What we do instead of putting stuff into the block, we graffiti the side of the container. And then we developed a special language to interpret that graffiti. So our special language reads those graffiti from the containers and interprets the messages and reads NFTs out of those messages. But we don't actually change transactions. We don't change the content of the block. Now, the ship that is shipping these containers has to carry these graffiti, but these graffiti carry no weight. They don't bloat the chain. They don't do anything. But the ship still has to carry them. And this is how Kusama works. We essentially graffiti the blocks that process normal transactions, only we submit empty transactions that contain no information at all and cause no changes on the chain's database at all, but are still nonetheless logged with every input to the chain. And then we process all of this off-chain to get to a final state that is the RMRK ecosystem. So this is how it works right now. We interpret custom messages, special messages that we put onto the blockchain, and it works pretty well, except it has two major downsides. One is that you have no way to easily sync with the system, because in order to synchronize and reach the final state of the NFTs, you have to be aware of all of these graffiti from the beginning. Like if Alice has an apple in block 5 and Alice sends Bob this apple in block 7, and then Alice emits another graffiti that says, I'm sending an apple to Charlie in block 9, obviously that last one is invalid because she already sent the apple to Bob. So in order to know that the last one is invalid, you have to know all of the ones from before and kind of squash them into one final state that you can validate. And because of this limitation, we are currently rewriting the logic because we now have the ability to actually use on-chain logic rather than do this off-chain. Now the technology exists and chains have connected to Kusama. We're currently rewriting the logic as smart contracts for Moonriver, so EVM chains, and at the same time as pallets to be integrated. So pallets are runtime plugins for chains. And this means that the logic that we write, this is written in Rust, the logic that we write is going to get implemented into these chains' lowest level. So if you think about Ethereum, Ethereum as a chain has no concept of tokens. Ethereum is only aware of its own native token, that's Ether. And it doesn't really know what a token is, doesn't really know what an NFT is. What you do in Ethereum when you make an NFT or an ERC20 token is you also write a hack. You're essentially always writing spreadsheets. And these spreadsheets are unoptimized and essentially just rules on how to present certain on-chain data to the dApps that are observing that data. This is what standards are. And if Ethereum were natively aware of ERC20 tokens or NFTs, it would be way more efficient at handling them because we could, store data that is specifically designed for these structures, for tokens and for NFTs and so on. But because Ethereum is basically a general purpose world computer, it's not optimized for any one specific use case, and this is why it's really inefficient at transferring NFTs and why it's really expensive. With these pallets, with this runtime code, what we get is really low-level optimizations for sending, storing, and doing other operations on NFTs. That is custom made for these data types. And so we're writing these two versions, one inefficient one in Solidity for EVM chains, and one efficient one for all the chains that want to add us to their low level.
Right.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I actually really like the idea of how you guys decided to connect to Moonriver, because I really think that is an underestimated chain and network. It's basically like Ethereum 2.0, and it actually functions in my idea. And we also know that Polkadot ecosystem is like a relay chain where it connects, and its purpose is to connect other blockchains together. And I love how you guys do, I suppose, the idea of hacking the NFT system. Most of our majority audience is actually, I suppose, more interested in NFTs, so we might need to direct back a bit. And I've got a really interesting question that I want to ask is, when you guys did your NFT ICO, you guys decided to do one with, I suppose, an NFT, which is Canaria. Could you tell us a bit about the thought process behind that? Because I know that ICO raised you guys over around $80 million, and I think that is really interesting, or how you guys decided to do ICO in that standard.
Yeah, I didn't want to do a token at first because I just wanted to fund the team full time to work on this, and I thought that to really demonstrate our ideas, the best way, the only way, is to demonstrate them on a practical example that shows how cool this technology is. And so I tried to think of the most complicated piece of software you can think of, and the most complex software in the world is video games, always video games. And so I went in the direction of designing a game-like NFT project that combines all of these NFT Legos into one thing, so that they can all be demonstrated at once. And this is how Canaria came to be. So we minted 9,999 eggs, digital eggs, and I think we were the first egg project to come out. There's been like a dozen copies since, where we were selling these eggs in 4 categories of rarity, depending on how many digits they had in their ID. And you had to issue emotes on these eggs. So like emoticons, you would send reactions to them. And depending on which emotes you sent to the eggs, that would influence what kind of bird you got when it hatched. So if you send like 50 fire extinguishers to your bird, there's an increased chance that it's going to get born with a fire extinguisher in its hand. If you send 50,000 water droplets to your egg, there's a chance that this bird is going to be water-based, or living underwater, or have a lighthouse in the background, or be on a boat, or whatever else. And people really reacted to this and emoted like crazy, so much so that we actually brought Kusama down twice. It was that popular. And when it came time,
for that as well. You guys broke Kasuna twice.
Yeah.
I was gonna. That's a really good. Yeah, it's funny. I was gonna ask really quick. So you're saying if people are using emojis on them, they can kind of control the output of the specific NFT itself, is what you're kind of touching on?
Yeah, this is what we did. So the eggs were Remark 1 NFTs, and Remark 1 supported just emotes and regular NFTs like on Ethereum, so just references to images. But if you had these emotes on them and you hatched the egg in the given time period that we allowed, then this egg would be burnt and the Remark 2.0 NFT would be minted from this egg, and this bird would be influenced. The look, feel, and functionality of this bird would be influenced by the emotes that you sent it, that you and other people have sent it. So it was like a social game where you had to talk other people into emoting on your eggs, and it turned out pretty fun. And what's really interesting is that when they hatched, I think we've turned around something like $7 million in volume just on the Canaria project and its items. And what's really interesting is that the items actually had more volume than the birds themselves. So the item economy is really alive there, because people, when their birds got hatched, they could very easily unequip these items, put them into their general inventory of their account, and sell them as regular old NFTs. And people started collecting these by rarity or by theme and topic. So like you have a bird that's in a fiery forest, you get it a fire extinguisher and a fireman's hat and a fireman's axe, and then you built a firebird or something. So people really went crazy and had some really imaginative ideas there. The item and the bird economy is still very much alive. What we also did to sweeten the deal is we added gems to the birds that are non-transferable NFTs. So these are NFTs that the bird can have in its inventory, and these NFTs travel with the bird, but you cannot send them out of the bird. And so this gives some intrinsic value to the bird, even if you strip it of all of its items. And some of these gems have special abilities, like giving you the revenue share of the entire team's profits. We distribute this monthly. Or giving you discounts, giving you the ability to ignore commission on the marketplaces, giving you the ability to visit us physically in the real world on some conferences, stuff like that. And we also then, at the same time, we noticed that while we were doing this NFT ICO, which is initial collectible offering, we noticed that VCs are very hesitant to invest into NFTs because they don't want to bother with NFTs. They really don't care about maintaining an inventory. They want something that's easy to flip mostly. And so what we came up with is we said that we would distribute 100% of our token supply to the eggs. So if all the eggs get sold out, all the tokens are distributed. And in the end, we sold out 89% of the eggs, which means that we distributed 89% of our tokens to the community. The team holds 5% of the tokens. Everything else is in the hands of the egg holders, of the bird holders now. And this worked out pretty well as well, because we didn't have any lockup periods. We didn't have any VCs to dump on the community. And so now we've been doing really well there, and people really ended up liking this distribution mechanic. So it's been working out really well.
Pretty interesting. Can you touch on the aspect of going towards the Kusama network versus Ethereum and the smart contracts one more time? You kind of mentioned it earlier in the conversation, but I wanted to hear your perspective again.
There are three reasons why I didn't go with Ethereum. One is because I was working at the Web3 Foundation at the time, working a lot on Kusama. And it only felt kind of natural to try and build whatever I think up on Kusama. I wanted to take that chain further because it was really interesting to me. The second reason is just the inefficiency. Any EVM chain that you use for NFTs in any way that are meant to be more than just digital dust collecting things will suffer from scaling issues and will always have expensive transactions. And you can't really expect people to, send an emote to your NFT if it costs $100 to send a thumbs up to your NFT. So this is obviously not doable. And on-site chains that have forked DDoS resistance out of their code, like Polygon, like BSC, like all of the other EVMs that are out there right now, they're only alive because they haven't reached the popularity of Ethereum yet. As soon as they become more popular, they will also either crash and burn or become expensive. This is by design in the EVM. The opcode costs are defined as such for a reason, and if you just reduce them too much, you open yourself to spam.
Okay.
So that's the second reason, inefficiency. And the third reason, and probably the biggest one, is that in Ethereum right now, you have the lowest common denominator, and that's ERC721. And that is the simplest form of NFT. It's basically just an on-chain link to an image. And marketplaces, galleries, and everything that exists on Ethereum right now, they really like this because it brings them a lot of money. It is for them economically irrational to support any other customization, because by doing just ERC721 support, they support the largest possible terrain, the largest possible ground, without putting their developers, users, and everybody else at risk by adding customizations. If you have a custom NFT project that does more than just sit there in your wallet, you are you don't have a chance to be included in the various marketplaces functionalities, because this is not economically rational for them. There's nothing in it for them unless you have such crazy volume that it's irresistible. And so the entire Ethereum ecosystem is constrained to this extremely primitive version of NFTs. And there's a lot of incumbents that just you cannot get to move away from this, which is fine, because it's a very popular ecosystem. It works, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Additionally, in Ethereum, the governance process is a huge headache. Just a few months ago, 2 optional fields were merged into the ERC721 standard that define royalty. And I say optional because royalties are not possible to enforce on-chain. So it is always up to the UI to add royalties and pay them out. And so this just a little bit of information that says who's supposed to get how much royalty, it took 3 years of discussion to get them merged in. If you take into consideration how much more functionality we've built on top of everything that ERC721 can do, it would take us many, many years of governance discussions and EIP approval processes to get that in. And by the end, we would probably end up with something that we didn't envision in the first place. And so launching on Kusama allowed us to iterate really quickly with no incumbents and get to a finished product in 6 months with both the UI and everything about this NFT, like basically shippable, which I think would have been impossible and prohibitively expensive on Ethereum. So it was just easier. It was way easier to ship here. And by doing this, we are basically aiming to make ourselves that good, that popular, that big, that we become impossible to ignore. And by that extension, we will become easier to implement into Ethereum when the time comes to submit a standard there.
I had a question. Can you touch on the security aspect in terms of being able to customize the NFTs and the security implications associated with that, if there are any? If you can touch on that a bit.
In what way? You mean like art rug pulls?
Well, say if you're able to modify consistently and change the NFT, like what does that look like in terms of, you had mentioned the emojis, right? Like changing the NFT and whatnot. What is that? I'm trying to best formulate the words. Is there a possibility of an exploit to where a user could possibly come in and take over that NFT by submitting thousands of emojis as just a small example? That's what I was asking, is like the security aspect of the platform.
Right. Every the specifications are very clearly defined, and every Lego is standalone, so you can use just one of them without relying on the others. So the effects don't carry over unless they're designed to carry over in the final product when you put these Legos together. You can define certain conditions that will trigger based on some other things, but it's all up to the implementer of the NFT, and it's not easy. You can't really mess it up that way in a way that lets somebody hijack your NFT or something like that. It's very clear in the spec what you can do, who can issue which command. It's been fairly battle tested at this point. Like our top sale of one bird was $770K USD.
That's awesome.
We're spending enough volume to consider this battle tested at this point.
That's great. The other thing you had mentioned in terms of syncing and validation, you've worked on that a little bit more, or is that something that you're still working on to fix in terms of the NFTs, like making sure things are validated and syncing correctly?
Yeah, so we are constantly improving the consolidator that we're running. So the consolidator is a little piece of code that can sync up all of these graffiti from the chain and come up with a final state that is valid. And we actually maintain a frequently updated IPFS dump that's automatically uploaded and hosted in IPFS, where you can at any point in time grab at most 15 minutes old dump of the entire RMRK ecosystem. So if anybody wants to build a block explorer or something like that, they can just download this and process this data without actually having to connect to the chain, fetch some information from there, and so on. We are always trying to improve this, but fundamentally it's a blockchain issue where, because we don't have a way to store information on the chain that is then easily readable, we can't make this any faster. And this is why we're rewriting the logic in smart contracts and in pallets, so that we can actually migrate away from this graffiti method and into something much more efficient. This graffiti method has been fun. It's been a great experiment, but there are now better technological solutions out there that we want to pursue. And so while this works fine, we would rather it worked even better. And so this is why we're rewriting this. It's fundamentally impossible to improve this any further by any, like a dramatical degree. Because it's just a technological barrier that can't be surmounted without changing the chain itself. And the chain itself is not meant to be changed because it's meant to stay lightweight.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you touch on the rarity aspect of things? You said it was one of them was based on the ID, not necessarily traits. Is that true for all projects, or are we able to define those variables as we launch NFTs on the network?
No, this was just categories in the ICO. So if you bought one of the first 9 eggs, those were super founders, and the next 90 were founders, and so on. This is not a rarity per se. Like there are some limited edition, which is the lowest tier, the last 9,000 birds that are more rare than some of the founders, purely by the randomness of the roll of their attributes that they got. So this was just a tiered sale. The real rarity comes from both this aspect and also whatever the bird got in the end by rolling some special stuff. So for example, bird number 841 is entirely unique, because 841 in Japanese is pronounced Yayoi, and that's for Yayoi Kusama, the artist after whom the Kusama network is named. And so this bird is designed to have Kusama aesthetics and Yayoi Kusama's wig. So this bird is very, very unique and arguably more rare and valuable than some of the founders. But then again, other things give these birds rarity as well, like these gems that I mentioned that you can't move out of the bird. So if your bird has one of those gems that distributes the team's revenue to you and shares profit with the user, obviously that's in much more demand than, for example, a visually rare bird that has a full set on it that looks great but doesn't have this function.
That makes total sense. It's really interesting. Like a different kind of way of doing things, right? Like on the Ethereum network, many of the people look at rarities in terms of like the traits that are passed to those specific NFTs, and that's how people kind of price in like what they're trying to sell them for and whatnot. So it's kind of a different perspective or approach.
Yeah.
Different but similar at the same time, right?
Yep.
Can you go into a little bit about the eternally liquid aspect of what you were talking about in terms of the NFTs that are launched?
So like if you have like this one item that's compatible with all of the birds, that all the birds can wear it, equip it, use it, and let's say that it's a it's a pencil, or it's a wooden, I don't know, pickaxe. So the bird now has this item. It can use it in the Canary metaverse, whatever. It can have fun with it. But then 10 years from now, Minecraft on the blockchain comes out. And obviously the pickaxe cannot be compatible with it because it's 2D on the bird. But what you do is you can add a new resource to this pickaxe, and only the issuer of the collection can do this. Can propose a new resource, and then the owner of the NFT has to accept it. And this is done to prevent rug pulls by the issuer, and also to prevent abuse by the owner. So it has to be like it's a multi-sig transaction, basically, issuer and owner of the NFT. And so I can then make a 3D version of this pickaxe, add this new resource to the existing pickaxe NFT. The owner will accept this resource, and now that pickaxe will have 2 different resources. One that's 2D illustration for the Canary birds, and one that's 3D for use in the Minecraft blockchain game that came out. And now you can just import that NFT into Minecraft and use that pickaxe if the game is configured that way. So this is what I mean by eternally liquid. Your NFT will always be useful and in demand across many different universes in this multi-chain environment, especially because it is connected to everything by default by means of Kusama's connectivity to all the parachains.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome. I did not know where to cut in between that great conversation you guys just had, but there is a couple of public and members waiting to ask some questions, so I will invite them up and let them ask the individual questions.
Mhm.
Hello, hello.
Hello, sir.
Yep, we can hear you perfectly. You can
Hello.
ask your question now.
Nice to meet you. First of all, may I ask you why you choose our club as your partner? And at the same time, may I ask how our club develop in the future? And in the future, how to attract the influencer partner like you? Thank you. That's all.
I didn't quite catch the last one, but the previous two I can answer. So how I chose this club, I know the founders, and so they expressed interest in like just talking about this because it's cool enough, and I'm a fan of the club, so and also a club NFT owner, so go club. Also, we have a promo plan here in place where we are actually trying to bridge the communities. So not only will we be developing these Solidity smart contracts for RMRK so that this can all be used on EVM-based chains, even though it's going to be inefficient. People have been asking for it, so I'm going to give it to them. But also, everybody who's here will be entered into a raffle to win an NFT that is CLUB721 themed and equipable into one of those Canaria birds, but also usable as a standalone NFT. So it's just a standalone NFT that looks pretty when equipped as part of those Canaria birds. If you have the Club NFT, CLUB721 NFT already on ETH, then you're guaranteed this NFT. You will get it by default if you just provide your KSM address. Everybody else who doesn't have it will enter a raffle to get these. And I hope that I can get you to join our ecosystem, and we will drop some KSM on you so you can interact with the ecosystem as well, because I want to just expand the reach of our community. I know that CLUB721 exploded in membership. It's an awesome and almost elite club of NFT enthusiasts. So I think it would be a shame if you weren't aware of well, the most advanced NFT system in the world.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you a lot. I have just invited another person up. Hello, Prato.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly.
Awesome. Well, first, I want to congratulate you on such a successful project. I mean, there's really nothing out there like it. You know, Canaria, Singular, and Remark. Just the whole project it blows my mind because I'm coming from a context as a new user who is just starting to explore NFTs. I know a lot of the people here and in CLUB721 and also the users that are engaging with Remark are more advanced NFT holders, but and enthusiasts. But that brings me to my question, which is something that you touched on a little bit, which is regarding expanding the community. And so my question is, for there's a lot of complexity to what Remark can do, and so how have you given any thought to how you might bridge the gap between like maybe the core community that's just hardcore NFT collectors and they do their due diligence and things like that, but perhaps, I mean, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, like you were talking about how these NFTs evolve over time and how NFTs can own other NFTs. So when I do a lot of research, so I was able to kind of figure things out on my own. But if there's like this, since this is exploding, there's this exploding new audience of people who maybe are not even interested in crypto, but they want to buy NFTs. And I think that's why NFTs exploded in recent times, because they have this whole fresh crop of users that just bypass crypto entirely for the most part. And maybe they'll buy Ethereum to buy an NFT, but they don't really care that much about crypto. They're just focused on NFTs. And so, to get exposed to Remark, how can you make it easier, or do you have any plans to make it easier for people who don't really know what they're doing for the most part to say, hey, maybe like, for example, if there's like a warrior and the warrior can own a sword, and maybe there's like some kind of process you can implement into Singular where if you're new to NFTs, you can say, hey, if you're new to NFTs, click here. And then maybe there can either be some sort of tutorial videos, or B, kind of like collections geared towards beginners where they can say, okay, well, if you buy this type of collection, then this connects with that, kind of like holding their hand in a way. And I know this is not the most exciting topic, but I think, kind of bringing people into the fold, so to speak, would be an interesting topic, because the way I see Remark, I see them as the leader in the NFT community as far as, projects goes. And I don't know, that's just kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And in many ways, we've looked at this retroactively, and there's a lot of success in our methods, but also a lot of things that we could have done differently. Most often, when you offer too many things, there's choice paralysis. People don't even know where to start learning. And so this is the impression that we got from people about Remark in general. Developers were quite comfortable with it, but when you talk to users about all of these features, the most common response to all of this is, okay, but what can I do now? What do I do? Where do I go? Tell me what to click. And this is normal, because it really is a really complicated system. In many ways, we could have learned a lot from a project like Loot on Ethereum, which was deceptively simple and borderline stupid, like white text and black background, nothing. And yet it inspired a whole ecosystem to spring up around it. And while that ecosystem has since died almost completely, it did inspire another extremely active game on Phantom called Rarity, which is extremely active to this day. So maybe there is something in this brutal simplicity where you let the community take it away. But I guess this worked out well as well. What we are planning to, we do have tutorials. It's just that it's really difficult to keep people's attention these days. People are used to, like 20-second TikTok videos, and there's just no way to get somebody to watch a 20-minute video anymore, let alone, 1-hour explainers or something like that will take them through everything that we need to know, but that they just don't have the desire to watch. So what we are going to do is we're going to focus on demonstrating this technology in a way that's understandable to people. There are 3 approaches to this. One is through the Chunkies project. One is through different implementations of the Remark 2 Legos, and the third option is through the metaverse. So the Chunkies project is a Remark 2.0 project that is similar to Canaria. Only in Canaria, you can only make a new item for a bird if you're whitelisted by us, by the Remark team. So we need to whitelist your collection to be equipable into the Canaria birds. And we hold this only for the most special of communities and partnerships and so on. So we're not going to be minting more and more items for the birds just like that. But with Chunkies, the Chunkies are going to be a project that's open to everybody. And we are going to write detailed guides on how to make new items and new art for the Chunky characters, for these avatars. And we'll let the community go wild. Anything goes. So that's one way. That's one way to teach developers and artists. Another way to teach other types of artists is by using different kinds of Remark 2 NFTs. So one example that I bring up is you mint an empty music sheet, and then people can mint notes and tracks and vocals into that music sheet and compose them together. And you end up with a song, a playable song, just like any other. But now this song has a record of contributions. And now this song can very easily distribute royalties from its future sales to everybody who participated in it. And collaborative compositions are something that people will be able to understand without having to think about the behind-the-scenes logic of Remark, without having to get confused by all of this that I've talked about today. And the third one is, so we'll have a lot of these projects that go into music, into books, into stuff people understand, really. And then the third one is the metaverse, which is probably the most understandable of all of them. And this is something that we're going to pursue in a manner, again, very different to current metaverses that are all focusing really hard on in-browser 3D. We're going in the opposite direction, and that's going to be an extremely mobile-friendly 2D version. But more on that in a week or two.
Yeah, that's a really great concept. And I was kind of thinking about what you said with the Legos idea, like you have an instructions, when you buy Legos, you have an instruction manual that kind of gives you a general idea. And I do agree people don't really have high attention spans. So perhaps it could even be something where you kind of have like a path, a basic path, like kind of like a tutorial on how to build on top of your NFT via this Lego system. And they could be incentivized by completing certain milestones, I guess. Maybe some of them could be free as a demo, and then others you can pay with your own money, and then you actually get to keep what you're building. Things like that. That might be interesting. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's great ideas. Thank you. So we definitely have an ambassador program in place that is going to incentivize active participation and hopefully train people to train other people. So we are working on that, but yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Thank you. It was great project. So really, really awesome. I wish I knew about it sooner, but I just started learning about NFTs, but really cool.
Yeah, that is definitely very interesting. I love how you mentioned the fact of the minting, like say an empty music sheet and then letting people add notes onto that. There is an artist actually based on ERC721 that does that. His name is Puck, and he has tried that before. Obviously, there's a lot of technical issues that arose because of the system being, I suppose, a bit simple in the sense. However, obviously with newer chains and maybe with RMRK, he can do that better. And if he ever decides to migrate, however, that's another story. Please let's welcome another member to ask a question. Chubby, would you want to ask, or do you want to ask Ono?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, thanks for having me, and also thanks for sharing so much insightful information in this session. And maybe two short questions, very quick. First of all, I'm to be honest, an investor in RMRK. Just a few days ago, and I think in terms of the marketing, I really appreciate that your team makes so much contribution, and I also hear a lot from different YouTubers and influencers regarding this program's strategy and planning. So in terms of marketing and more promoting, do you have any more plans? And this is number one. Second question, in terms of the exchanges, so as far as I understand, there are just central exchange at the moment, you can buy KuCoin or DIO. But because I think Kusama is not that familiar to everybody, and for example, I myself don't know how to buy the from the DEX. And I think there's one upcoming. Is that correct? And also, do you have any plan to list down, for example, in future in Binance or Coinbase? Thanks.
Yeah, I can't comment on the token stuff. No talks about exchanges or anything like that. For marketing, we don't have any plans. We don't pay influencers. We don't bribe anybody to talk about our project. We refuse any YouTubers that approach us and offer to make videos for money. We just don't want to do that. If they notice our project, that's really cool, and we are happy to educate them. And like if they, if we're just not going to support them without them being really clear about a piece of content being sponsored, and none of them really are. So we just don't want to support that culture. But in terms of DEXs, so Kusama is So the remark token itself is on another chain, and that chain is called StateMine. And StateMine is a chain connected to Kusama. StateMine chain, and that's because Kusama also can't support custom tokens because, like I said, it's meant to be very, very simple. So it has this other chain that is connected to it that is supposed to be the, the chain for balances, just a chain for tracking balances, for transactions. And this chain does not yet have the ability to connect to another chain that is already connected to Kusama. So this is happening in its next runtime upgrade, which should happen in the next few days. At that point, the only DEX in the Kusama ecosystem, that is Karura, will be adding Remark to their UI, and you will be able to buy Remark on Karura. Also, very soon, Tether will also be minted on the StateMine chain. So you will also have another stablecoin to trade with in the ecosystem. And the idea is to have this StateMine chain connect to all of these other chains as soon as possible so that we can start moving tokens back and forth. We are also working on a wrapped version of Remark tokens for Moonriver so that you can trade it on the DEXs that are there. So Sushi, Solarbeam, and whatever else exists there, you'll be able to trade the wrapped Remark token there.
Thank you very much. That's very clear. Thank you again.
Sure.
Thank you, Chubby. Ono, would you want to finish the last question? Because I think that will be well over 4 minutes.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for coming on. And I have so many questions after this AMA, but I'll try to keep it to one in the interest of time. I've thought like what you've mentioned is super interesting with, like the Lego, the attaching, the external influences and all of that. And we've talked about, like merging NFTs together and I guess hierarchically stacking them per se, and bringing in sort of the ownership aspect to it. On a bit of a more macro level, I guess what I sort of see is a future with, say, like renting of land in the metaverse or like community-driven advertisement, things like that. And I was wondering what you feel like standards or regulations would sort of look like around that, because obviously it's still a very new space. And with the Remark token, I think things will be able to be a lot more community-driven, and particularly with the ownership aspect that we talked about beforehand.
Yeah. Those are interesting questions, and I don't really have a clear answer on that. Neither do regulators, neither does our legal team. It's all up in the air. We're all waiting for somebody to get burned first and learn from their lessons. We are experimenting with community managed real estate management in the metaverse, where you will be able to tokenize, for example, a billboard into fungible tokens, and then and then corporations have to bribe the community of these token holders to include their ad on that billboard, because the community is governing the billboard itself. Now, in theory, because this is decentralized, nobody can really put a stop to it, so this is good. But in practice, we'll see what happens. There are ways for the world police to come after you if they really want to. In terms of renting the land and stuff, that is definitely planned, and I don't think that should cause any problems in any way. Just renting NFTs, and if a piece of land is just an NFT like any other, renting NFTs is not something that should be controversial in any way. I don't see any problems there at all. One other mechanic that's really interesting that we're experimenting with is harbinger taxes, and this is where if you buy an NFT, anybody can buy it from you at 10% higher price. Well, in our case, 10%. But in order to keep it while you have it, you have to pay 1% tax per week of the buying price. And so this means that if you price it really low, then you will pay less tax, but also you increase the chances of somebody else grabbing it from you. But if you price it really high, you will decrease the chance of losing it, but you will also pay more taxes. This is perfect for advertisements, and this is something that we're exploring in a more interesting product-focused way, where we would develop a completely decentralized ad network based on that. So stay tuned for that. But I think there are no implications here as long as the protocol is completely decentralized. So if there's no one team getting the funds from these, in a way, passive incomes, and everything is distributed automatically, I think everything's in the clear, and nobody should get in any trouble.
No, that's really awesome. And I guess like a little bit of a side note, but also to follow up. And Naza, please cut me off if we're going over time.
No, it's okay. Go ask. As long as Bruno is fine, we should be okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks.
Great.
Yeah, no, what I was going to ask is because I was very interested in your crowdfunding approach. Because something that I've been thinking about in the NFT space for a while is that, the way that a lot of us develop our products, a lot of people develop products right now is, you build a product and then you deploy it and then you see what the community thinks about it, and then you iterate, and that's sort of how it goes. But I feel like with these NFT communities and the things that we can build with them, it's sort of the first opportunity that we're able to do it in the inverse and build these communities and build the product afterwards and sort of build a product that's really tailored towards what these people want. And I feel like that's, to a degree, what you guys have done as well. Like, you've crowdfunded this approach and now you're building something that people are truly using with very strong utility. And I guess like whether or not that's something that you see continuing down the future through your platform, through your tokens. It's a bit of an abstract question, I know. And I sort of just thought about it. So it's not the most polished way to ask. But yeah.
Well, I get the gist. It makes sense, and I do hope it continues. We didn't, so we could have, sold a lot of things before we had anything, but we did it in tiers on purpose. But I fully realize that it would have been more financially effective to just go full out marketing and fundraising. I do hope more people take our approach. We started with having nothing but an idea, and this with an idea we raised the first initial round for the first 9 eggs, right? So it's always been eggs. It's always been NFTs from the beginning. So we first raised with that. Then we started developing, and once we had the minimum viable product for selling the rest of the eggs, only then did we release the sale of the rest of the eggs. And then it took another while to actually build the RMRK 2.0 stuff, which was a nightmare on its own because of this lack of chain logic and so on. So we were always focused on shipping first and then advertising later. I hope others follow suit, or if at the very least they don't and they raise first with a massive sale, I hope they continue to build on that IP and build their brand and build everything that they've formed around it, because today's communities really need high interaction, high I don't know how to say it. Like, you can't really let them get distracted because they leave instantly. You can see that with Vogu and with Omnimorphs, for example, where people just, the communities just disappeared basically, or the Sevens even. Whereas with the Bored Apes, because they keep shipping and because they keep doing things and because they were earlier, they maintain a strong cultish community with a sense of eliteness and belonging. So this is a team that did really well, but that is treating the product, the output that they've created, like a product, and they're treating the entire project like a company, and they're trying really, really hard about it. Whereas all of the others, like, meh, it's not very appealing to stick around. Like there was a recent project, the Oni Ronin, that had beautiful art of samurai with like ghosts and spirits and everything, but everything they gave the community as holders of these samurai was something that you can you Google online and you find a $20 tea ceremony to attend remotely online, and that's it. That was the bonuses. This is not the way to build a community. You need to make the community feel exclusive. And so if you're not following the build, get users, then build another layer, then get more users, then build another layer, then get more users that we did, and that maybe we could have done more effectively. Then at the very least, I hope projects keep iterating really hard on their initial delivery, like Bored Apes do, in order to really reward that community. Because there's a huge amount of dilution in the ecosystem. There's so many projects, people launching left and right. You need to try really hard to keep your people.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And thank you so much for your insight. That sort of aspect of community building and product building is something that I'm personally very interested in. And I thought that you guys did in a very unique way. So yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Ono, and thank you a lot and deepest appreciation shown, Bruno, from our community. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing your insight. Remark has definitely been on our radar, and one of our founding members, AAA, has definitely told me that since September, I do regret some parts of not investing a bit earlier, but now I know this, I will definitely be more on the platform and checking out NFTs and try to play around a bit more. And yes, please do work elaborate more on the project, as I do have more insight, and I do believe that this could be something new in the future. Again, thank you a lot, and on behalf of CLUB721, thanks for coming, and we will be ending the AMA here today. Do you have any last words you would like to share?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. Anybody who's interested in learning more is welcome to just hit our website, RMRK.app, and you can find links to our Discord, Telegram, and everything else there. The mods here will tell you how to submit your KSM addresses if you haven't already, and we will then distribute some of these NFTs as soon as we have the art done. And if you want to learn more about this Remark 2 project, this Canaria birds that have items and everything, then you should go to canaria.rmrk.app. It's also linked on remark.app, so you can check it out there. So you can like maybe inspect some of the birds and whatnot. Anyway, we're in Telegram and Discord. Ask any questions you want. We're always available. Cheers.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening to this AMA. This is Narza and Brian. Thanks, Brian, for hosting this with me today. It was definitely great fun doing it together.
Yeah, for sure.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No worries. We'll be ending the AMA here. Please stay tuned for the video upload. And yeah, good evening. Have a great day. Or good morning, wherever you are. Bye bye.
Yeah, take care.